May 8th, 1999. A motorhome sits parked outside a modest house in Moore, Oklahoma. Inside, a woman lies motionless on a bed. When her fiancé wakes beside her the next morning, he finds her body cold to the touch. Dana Plato, once America's sweetheart on the hit show Diff'rent Strokes, is dead at just 34 years old. But this isn't where Dana's story begins. To understand how a beloved child star ended up dying alone in a Winnebago, we need to go back to the beginning, back to when the dream of stardom first took root. 1964, Maywood, California. A baby girl named Dana Michelle Strain enters the world under difficult circumstances. Her mother is just a teenager, too young, too unprepared. At only 7 months old, little Dana is given up for adoption. Enter Dean and Florine Plato, a couple from the San Fernando Valley who would give Dana a new home and a new name. But for Florine, Dana wasn't just a daughter. She was a project, an investment, a ticket to the glamorous world of Hollywood that seemed so tantalizingly close in Southern California. While most children spent their early years playing with toys and making friends, Dana spent hers shuttling from audition to audition. Florine was relentless, determined to mold her adopted daughter into a star. And in a way, it worked. By the time she was in elementary school, Dana had appeared in over 100 commercials. Her face was everywhere, on television screens across America, selling everything from cereal to toys. But Florine wanted more. Commercials were just the beginning. She wanted her daughter on the big screen. When Dana was just 13 years old, she landed roles in 2 horror sequels, The Exorcist II: The Heretic and Return to Boggy Creek. Both films were critical disasters, savaged by reviewers. But Dana kept working. Her next film, California Suite, was different. A star-studded production that earned award nominations and actually won a few. Still, Dana faced a crossroads that most teenagers never have to consider. She wasn't just a working actress. She was also a talented figure skater, good enough to potentially try out for the U.S. Olympic team. Think about that for a moment. At 13 years old, this girl had to choose between 2 completely different paths to greatness: skating or acting, ice rinks or sound stages, the Olympics or Hollywood. She chose acting, and for a brief, shining moment, it seemed like the right choice. It happened almost by accident. Dana auditioned to be on The Gong Show, that infamous talent competition where bad acts got literally gonged off stage. She was part of a cheerleading team, just another kid hoping for their 15 minutes of fame. But someone noticed her. A TV producer saw something special in this energetic 13-year-old and offered her an audition for a new sitcom called Diff'rent Strokes. The premise of the show was simple, but groundbreaking for its time. A wealthy white businessman adopts 2 black boys from Harlem after their mother, his housekeeper, passes away. The boys, Arnold and Willis Jackson, would be raised alongside the man's biological daughter, Kimberly. Dana got the part of Kimberly. And just like that, her life changed forever. Diff'rent Strokes became a massive hit almost overnight. Every week, millions of Americans tuned in to watch the Drummond family navigate issues of race, class, and family. Arnold's catchphrase, "What you talking about, Willis?" became part of the cultural lexicon. Dana, along with her co-stars, Gary Coleman and Todd Bridges, became instant celebrities. They were just kids. Dana was 14, Gary was 10, Todd was 13. But suddenly, they were recognized everywhere they went. The pressure was immense. Here's what most people don't realize about child stardom. It's not just about the bright lights and autographs. It's about adults treating you like a commodity. It's about having no normal childhood, no privacy, no room to make mistakes. It's about carrying the weight of an entire production, jobs for dozens of people on your young shoulders. Dana and her TV brothers found a way to cope: drugs and alcohol. It started small, but it escalated quickly. Dana's substance abuse became so severe that some mornings it took her 5 hours just to sober up enough to go to work. 5 hours! And she was still a teenager. Meanwhile, her personal life was falling apart. Her adoptive parents divorced, and her father, Dean, who had been largely absent from her life, suddenly reappeared once she became famous. He wanted money. In fact, he actually sued his own daughter for financial support. The case failed, but imagine the betrayal Dana must have felt. At 18, Dana fell in love with Lonnie Lambert, a rock and roll guitarist. They married quickly, too quickly perhaps. And then Dana got pregnant. For the producers of Diff'rent Strokes, this was a problem. The show dealt with serious issues, sure, but a pregnant teenager didn't fit their vision. The media had also caught wind of Dana's drinking and drug problems. The wholesome image was crumbling. So they made a decision. Kimberly Drummond was written off the show. Dana Plato was out of a job. Then came 1988, a year that would shatter Dana completely. In the span of a single week, her husband left her and her mother died from a rare skin disease. Suddenly, the two women who had shaped her entire life were gone. And without the structure of Diff'rent Strokes, Dana was adrift. Overwhelmed with grief and financial stress, Dana made a fateful decision. She signed her power of attorney over to an accountant. It seemed like a practical move. Let someone else handle the money while she focused on healing. But the accountant disappeared with almost everything she had, leaving her with less than $150,000. It wasn't just Dana he robbed. This man embezzled $11 million from multiple clients before vanishing. Then came the final blow. Dana's divorce was finalized, and the judge awarded custody of her son Tyler to his father. At barely 24 years old, Dana Plato had lost her mother, her husband, her money, and her child. She was completely alone. Dana tried to reinvent herself. If Hollywood wouldn't let her grow up gracefully, she'd force the issue. She posed for Playboy in 1989, trying to shed the innocent image of Kimberly. She appeared in low-budget films with titles like Prime Suspect and Bikini Beach Race, movies that went straight to video and disappeared just as quickly. Nothing worked. The offers weren't coming, the money was gone, and Dana's addiction was getting worse. On February 28, 1991, Dana walked into a video store in Las Vegas. She pointed a pellet pistol at the terrified clerk and demanded all the money in the register. The clerk handed it over. $164. That's what Dana's desperation was worth that day. She left the store with the money. The clerk immediately called 911 and said something that made headlines across the country. "I've just been robbed by the girl who played Kimberly on Diff'rent Strokes." But Dana either came to her senses or realized she was too famous to get away with it. She returned to the store. Whether to turn herself in or because she dropped her glasses depends on who you ask. Either way, she was arrested. Dana sat alone in a jail cell. No one came to bail her out. She literally had no one. Until Wayne Newton heard about her story. The legendary entertainer, Mr. Las Vegas himself, didn't know Dana personally, but he saw a young woman in desperate need of help, and he posted her $13,000 bail. It was an act of pure kindness from a complete stranger. The judge, perhaps seeing Dana's obvious desperation, showed mercy. She received 5 years probation instead of prison time.
The video store incident sparked a national conversation about child stars and what happens when the spotlight fades. People pointed to Dana's co-stars. Gary Coleman was having his own legal and financial troubles, and Todd Bridges had been arrested multiple times on drug charges. Dana kept trying to work. In 1992, she became one of the first celebrities to star in a video game called Night Trap, a bizarre interactive experience about protecting young women during a sleepover. The game was ultimately shut down after a congressional hearing deemed it inappropriate. That same year, Dana was arrested again, this time for forging a prescription for diazepam, an anti-anxiety medication. Worse, she'd violated her probation from the video store robbery. This time, the judge wasn't lenient. Dana spent 30 days in prison. After her release, she entered drug rehabilitation and tried to make ends meet. She got a job at a dry cleaner's, and customers reported that she was surprisingly down-to-earth and friendly. But Dana was an actress, not a dry cleaner. She needed to perform. In 1997, desperate for both money and a return to acting, Dana accepted an offer to appear in an adult film called Diff'rent Strokes, the story of Jack and Jill. The title was a cruel parody of the show that had made her famous. By 1998, Dana was living in a dilapidated Winnebago in Florida with her fiancé and manager, Robert Menchaca. She appeared in a film called Desperation Boulevard, about a former child star trying to revive her career. Life imitating art, imitating life. In early 1999, Dana's former roommate publicly claimed that Dana was still using drugs. To defend herself, Dana agreed to appear on The Howard Stern Show, a decision that would prove to be her last public appearance. Howard Stern's radio show was known for being provocative, controversial, and often cruel. Dana was open about her past struggles, her financial problems, her addictions. She insisted she'd been sober for 10 years. But then the call-in segment began. Listeners hurled insults at her. They questioned her sobriety. They mocked her career. To prove she was clean, Dana offered to take a drug test right there on the show. She let Stern cut a piece of her hair for testing, but when the interview ended, she asked for the hair back. Then came a devastating confession. She admitted she was taking pain medication following a wisdom tooth extraction 4 months earlier. In other words, she wasn't sober. She'd lied. Or perhaps she'd convinced herself that prescription pills didn't count. Dana left the show humiliated, broken. She and her fiancé drove their motorhome to visit his mother in Oklahoma. During the visit, Dana said she wasn't feeling well. She took one of her pain pills and a muscle relaxant, then excused herself to lie down in the motorhome. It was May 8, 1999. That night, Robert went to sleep beside her. When he woke the next morning, Dana was dead. The autopsy revealed she'd taken far more medication than necessary to treat mild pain. What was initially called an accidental overdose was later ruled a suicide. Dana Plato's body was cremated, her ashes scattered over the Pacific Ocean. Her net worth at the time of her death was just $1,000, a devastating end for someone who once earned hundreds of thousands of dollars per year. Dana left behind a 14-year-old son, Tyler. He had dreams of fame too, not acting like his mother, but singing and rapping. But Tyler inherited more than his mother's ambitions. He inherited her demons. Tyler struggled with addiction throughout his teenage years and early 20s. Unlike his mother, he had more support, more people who tried to help. But Mother's Day and the anniversary of his mother's death were always unbearably hard for him. In May 2010, just days before Mother's Day, Tyler Lambert withdrew from his friends and family. At age 25, he took his own life with a gunshot to the head. Mother and son both gone too soon, both victims of addiction, of trauma, of a system that builds up child stars and then abandons them. On what would have been Dana's 55th birthday in 2019, her Diff'rent Strokes co-star Todd Bridges, himself a survivor of addiction and legal troubles, paid tribute to her memory. Dana Plato's story is a cautionary tale about the cost of childhood fame, about mental health, about addiction, and about a society that celebrates celebrities while failing to protect the vulnerable people beneath the persona. She was adopted twice, first by the Platos, then by America through their television screens. But when she needed help the most, when the camera stopped rolling and the applause faded, she found herself utterly alone. Dana Plato didn't just lose her career. She lost her childhood, her family, her son, and ultimately, her life. And 11 years later, she lost her son too. If there's a lesson in Dana's tragedy, it's this. Behind every child star's smile is a real child who needs protection, support, and the freedom to be imperfect. Because when we fail them, the consequences aren't just sad, they're fatal.